The party are in the bottommost level of a dark, dusty, and dank tomb, with the terrible rotting corpse of a sorcerer, blood mage thing they have just destroyed, but it's lying on its side, with an awful smile on its face. This can't be good. Will they escape the graveyard? Hit it. So, from where we'd left off, Pete's new Tower shop was down, and so he didn't have anything to play here. But, you know, it was a bit too cold for him to come out of the house anyway, so he didn't even turn up to this session. So he didn't even get his new character out. Yes, that's right, new character, but who will it be? That's if he's even going to keep playing with us. He's having some difficulties at the moment, personal difficulties. And it's making his attendance at games quite difficult for him. The way I'm going to look at it now is because obviously he was playing an NPC-controlled character before, or an NPC-suggested one. So I said, no matter what happens, you can come in with your new character at the new experience. And well, this one's kind of died straight off. So we'll let him have someone come in with the rough sort of experience of the team. However, every session he now doesn't turn up, I am going to impose experience limitations, and I'll tell you why. I think that the power difference in the age system won't make such a big difference like it would, say, in a D&D thing. And I think the weaker somebody is, the more easily they'll feel getting beaten up. And the harder the party might struggle. And struggle is appreciated in Age. It's a dark system, and I really do actually want to start bringing that in, because we've had so many sessions now of his non-attendance where something really needs to be done to show him that he needs to play his character to completely represent it in at least most of the sessions. Anyway, back onto the actual happenings of the session. And of course they are 4 again anyway, because they have Blacktail. He's a very powerful Mabari, not just like a normal sort of accompany you, red shirt, Star Trek-y style NPC guy in there, even though he probably is still weakest. Only being a dog, but hey, anyway. So, God, our level 6 party are there in the tomb, and they realised that it was coming over rather cold, and the breath coming out of their mouths was fogging up. They could see their breath, and they thought, that's ominous. And as they made their way back up out of the tomb and all up the stairs, and then round the corner and up some more stairs and so on and so forth, it was getting colder and colder and colder, and there was a shrill chill in the wind coming in through the opening. And as they looked out into the opening, they saw snowfall. And of course there'd been nothing like that at all on the way in. Snowfall? Heavy snow. They made their way up out of the tomb, and the entire graveyard has snowed over like a really thick layer of snow, like it's been snowing overnight. How? And the storm's going on, and there's still it's still fog across the ground as well, and it's strange looking fog. It's got like this weird way it moves and curls at the bottom. Creepy. They couldn't see their guide, the guy they'd come in with them to show them the way and let them into the complex. Couldn't find him at all. They were looking around. They were looking into looking for like footprints in the snow, but there was nothing. They surmised, well, perhaps if this is some sort of unnatural snow storm, then it could have covered it up. But this is bonkers. What sort of power has occurred here? We've dealt with the graveyard now. Let's just get out of here. But before they did, Blacktail caught something in his scent and headed across, past some gravestones, round a corner, and there, behind one gravestone, lying in the snow with a terrible head wound and some facial blunt attack wound as well, bleeding quite profusely from the head, was their guide, the Orlesian member of Sanguinary Rose, unarmed as he was. Well, they didn't know what to make of it. They checked his vitals and saw that he was still alive, so someone's attacked him, done this to him seemingly, while the guys were down in the crypt. Well, they tried a bit of first aid, and they used all in all a couple of medical kits to try and resuscitate him to a decent state. And he was just babbling and incoherent and crazy once he did come around. His eyes were bloodshot, and he was just pointing with a shaking finger and saying, he can't, he didn't, but he did, but how? But and he was just, didn't make any sense, and they followed his gaze all the way to the largest tomb in the graveyard. So it's just like a single rectangular style raised plinth thing, and it's the one of Var Hewitt. Of course, they went to Var Hewitt Manor, if you remember, on the way in, and picked up their mission from that. Var Hewitt is the one that he referred to as Phew, thank the Maker that he hasn't risen. Except now the crypt lid is off, and he's nowhere to be seen, and there's no footprints. So they decide, we're going to have to get this guy out of here then. So they pick him up, and they try and help him to come round again, because he passes out, but no, he won't come round again. So Tanadol starts carrying him. And they're walking their way out of the graveyard, down the middle. And the fog at the end looks very, very unnatural. And then Gabe's the first one to see it, and I put it down on a post-it note for him, that he's spotted something there. A face, a handsome face. Looks like the skin is pale white, and there's a moustache there. A heroic gaze staring down the way at them. And they got closer and closer, and then they started to see it, and Gabe sort of pointed out, look, are you actually seeing that? And the guys were very cautious, and they could only see, the face. Nothing else sort of below, but then the fog was pretty heavy still. And in fact, to see the live play version of all this, which will run in support of it, then you can click the annotation up on screen, or I might also think to include it in the info bar below as the first link as well, if you don't happen to have annotations turned on. And they try looking under the fog, and they see that it's curling in. They try and see like if there's feet there, but it's curling in wickedly underneath and lowering down. Karak can't see. And then the fog seems to be closing in on them, surrounding them, trying to get behind them and around them, and they're pushing forward, and the fog looks like it's starting to follow them and such. And then they get so close that they see it's actually a knight, and he's got a broadsword, and he's got his hands on the top, and the sword is in against the ground, and his armour looks somewhat old, like he's, been wearing it in the grave. And the handsome face is a porcelain death mask. Oh dear. And they try going around him, and he animates, takes a combat stance, and it's on. Tanadol rolled 23 on initiative, by the way. Bloody hell. And of course, it's another one of those good things of getting the initiative rolls out of the way long before you even get to the fight, just at the start of the session. And straight after a fight, it's just like, let's get the next ones down for whenever. Okay. So, oh god, this was a fight. This was one heck of a fight. And, Blacktail went into a sort of dying state, and Karak had to pull him up and was chucking rejuvenates around on the team and just keeping them hanging in there, and he's proccing a lot. I mean, Carrack's pretty much proccing every turn, always. It's a bit crazy. And, yeah, this guy, he is the stats for him are, I used the Iron Ghoul from the Midgard Bestiary for the Age system by Josh Jarman. I thought that would be quite suitable here for this thing that they are facing as they try and leave. And yeah, Var Hewitt's trying to stop them, and they're asking him, why are you doing this? And he's saying, you must join me in death. I'm compelled by the force that raised the others, and I must conjoin you to me in eternal despair. Well, that's pleasant, isn't it? But yeah, long story short, if you want to see the bones of that combat, if you pardon the pun there, properly, then check out some of the live footage that I'm hoping to make available, and that will have that in there. So, crikey. One thing I did pull on them was something intricate with the stunt points right at the end, because they were using their stay aware to try and gain information. And only towards the end did I give them information that there was some sort of power building up, some sort of like red fire energy, and it was coming up through the bones, and it was starting to permeate through the metal, and like burn and stain the metal where it was flaring out. And then this was an indicator that his soul energy, his protective spirit that's remained in this place to look over the Sanguinary Rose Sanctuary, their monastery, has now been released, and it's that's going to die, which isn't cool for the Sanguinary Rose sub-order of the Chantry. Anyway, it also meant that he was going to go berserk mode. So I decided what I was going to do extra to this PDF, because sometimes bosses have to be given an extra bit of bang, and this one's had a nice sting in the tail. So I decided, right, as soon as he hits no health, this thing's going to start flaring up full on, and he did hit no health. He was using his interesting paralyze attacks, by the way, a grave bite thing, which he wasn't actually biting because he was wearing his mask, so he was more doing like an elbow stun to the face and manoeuvres like that, or just cracking them with the back of a hand and gauntlet and what have you, and they're sort of like holding their head bent over and dazed like that. So his Savage Assault's very nice as well, because if he gets 3 stunt points he can then charge and get a free attack again against someone else. And of course with his sword he's +9 to hit and 3d6 +8 damage. So whew, he's putting out an average of about 20 damage for the way the rolls went. Yeah. And I decided, when he hits 0 health, I'm going to roll a d6, and that's how many rounds he's got left of kind of suspended life. I thought that would be a cool idea. Yeah. I suppose I should have done d6 plus con thinking about it, but his con was like 4, and I rolled a 6, so yeah. yeah. So anyway, I just decided the d6, and yeah, they got unlucky that they had to then put up with him for 6 rounds, and he was, with what was left of his jaw hanging off there, and the porcelain mask, by the way, had been hit by a rock spout, and half of it shattered and broke up and went up there, and the other half just like fell off on its hinges, and his jaw's all like broken, and it's trying to speak, and the last of his energy animating these bones, he warns them, "Now you have unleashed me, survive if you can." And I don't know what this means. It's very cryptic, and what of course it means is that they've got 6 rounds, and no matter how much damage they do to him, he's just burning himself out like a solar nova. They actually have to just survive him. So really, they ought to be going defensive at this point, but not even attacking, because none of it will work. But they don't realise that, so they're laying in the damage, and they didn't ask for another tactical insight from the new stunts. So yeah, 6 rounds of it, and I decided in these final 6 rounds. And he really hadn't managed to proc any stunts during the fight. It was very, very poor performance. Got exceptionally unlucky because he's very stunt based with his damage. That in these final rounds, I decided every number on the dragon die, whether there's doubles or not, will have their full stunts brought out just because his energy is unleashing. And then on the second to last turn, on turn 2 of left of 6, on the tracker, he was going to use an extra die and add that to the stunt points available as well. And then on his final turn, just before he actually dies, he was going to roll 2 extra dice and add those to his dragon die as his final stun points. And he was putting some lovely combinations together. And you know what? It wasn't too overpowered for the guys to deal with. It was nice, and they really appreciated that the fight had different pacing to it, that towards the end it got frantic on them, and then it was just a frantic battle for survival and just about trying to hang in there. I think one of the most interesting elements in there was when they disarmed him. Multiple times they kept trying to disarm the thing. So yeah, eventually they managed to do it. And this disarm attempt, it yanked his broadsword free. Tanador picked it up and started using it against him. So he draws his long sword and heavy shield. And then at this point, it's a funny thing, because on the stats, he's listed as a defense 16, but there isn't one of those little asterisk things to say with shield. And he's got like the different configurations of weapons he can have. So I figured it out that he probably should have been defense 13, and that the 16 was accounting for his heavy shield, because he's got sword and shield mastery as well, sword and board thing. So that was kind of interesting, but it didn't have that. It had his defense of 16. The 16 was very nicely balanced for them to fight against anyway, because, of course, the to-hit thing goes up extremely high, so I'm glad I kept it like that. And, of course, when he drew his shield and they disarmed him, the defense went up to 19. But, of course, these are level 6s and they are OP. They do everything they can possibly do to put that attack score up. They know what they are doing, and they were still hitting him a lot. So they were fine. Anyway, they go to try and pick up their guide, now the battle's over, and he's passed away. Oh dear. And they decide, he's probably got the horrible disease, so we'll have to cut his head off. So they did that, and then they left the graveyard place and found that the order's doors were still barred shut and chained off. So they said, alright, let's just get out of here and go collect our reward. So they go over to the Varhuet Manor and find that it is aflame. The townspeople are trying to put it out, but to no avail. And interestingly, the flames are of a strange reddish hue, like that which was seen permeating from the bones of Varhuet himself. Coincidence? So they say, oh great, that's our promised reward down the drain. So then they start carrying on down the road, resigned to have given up. But they see a figure on the road, and they're like, oh no. He's standing on the road, and he's got his broadsword out in front of him, with his hands on the top of it like that, and they all groaned, oh no. We're going to have to fight him again, aren't we? But no, they weren't. No, this was quite a live guy, and he had a helmet on. He was just a Templar, an Orlesian Templar, and he spoke to them, and he said, we keep to our word. Here is your payment for completing the deed. And furthermore, they got 1 gold 50 each. And furthermore, here is an extra gold, each of you, to help ensure your discretion in the matter of the undead breaking out on us like it did, unfortunately. And now we will do our utmost to clean it up. Trying to buy their silence. Anyway, they leave it at that. And they like their windfall. Shame they were going to lose a lot of it straight after. Because I used the carousing chart after that, once they'd arrived back in Denerim, being the fools that they are, Carrack and Tanador, they like going out on the town and being stupid. It pretty much starts with getting drunk, and then from there, anything can happen. So, I've just recently joined the Google Plus community of Dragon Age, and I've got to say that Google Plus for anything I find infinitely better than Facebook. Anyway, I hate Facebook, hate it. So there was a very interesting post on there about a carousing chart, and it had been adapted from like D&D or whatever it was over into the age system. So essentially what happens is that they decide they're going to go out on the town, and by the way, Gabe joined them. He was up for it this time, so different to Amelia in that sense. He's up for a laugh, and a bit of male bonding, was going on. And the way it's written, is that you give up 100 silver times a d6. So, it could accumulate quite badly out of control. And there is a good bit to it, by the way. You're not just spending completely stupidly, but it's more for sort of idiots to let off steam, like idiots like Carrack and Tanador, now Gabe, actually, with all terrible hangovers and memories that are only half exist in their poor grey matter dying brains. God, trying to stitch the synapses back. See, they have a fun thing of that, but I've decided, I'm actually going to, instead of saying it's 100 silver by a die, I'll let them actually determine how many the multiplier is going to be that they want to risk. So that way they can then choose, we'll only, to be honest, I don't want to risk losing much, so I'll just say 5 silver, and then you roll, the d6 and whatever it is, it's 5 times that result. Or you could be silly and you could say 100 silver or whatever, a sovereign. Then it is times 6 or 1 to 6, however many on the d6. So I gave them a little go at this, and I told them also it's going to be a silver to experience points ratio. Okay, so that's gave them something interesting. They're buying experience, but there is a reason for it. You see. We'll get to this in a sec. It's not just some cheap thing. It's very good for these particular characters, as you probably have got to know them. Carrack chose a multiplier of 25 silver. Gabe and Tanador also chose a 25 silver, if I'm remembering this rightly, and that came up as pretty much a sovereign each, or something along those lines. They all put their amounts forward, and there was differing amounts, and they instantly get the payoff of experience. Because you can gain experience from just being a twat out on the town, just learning more about the world in a different way, having a useful conversation with someone that just makes you more knowledgeable, or just getting to let off steam for a while. Maybe that's actually good for you in your adventuring life the way it is. But they then have to roll a couple of times on this on this 3d6 chart, and they got a number 12 and a number 15 result. And the number 12 was something like you've invested your money. You've gambled. That's right, and lost. Number 12 is something like you've gambled and lost it all. So I had to also find out how much they're taking out on the town with them. And also, they rolled a 15, which was they've invested half their money into a potentially dodgy thing where they've got drunk and they've just gone along with it. And then we roll a d6 to find out if it was genuine or not. And only on a 6 is it actually genuine. And like 1 to 4, that it was a scam and they've lost that money. And 5, it was a scam and the police are now after them. Or Johnny Law as it's written. So yeah, they rolled a 5, so they were going to be in trouble with the law. But Lady Baranti cleared all that up later anyway for them, so it never was going to affect them, that element of it. So they're fine. They've still stayed true to the house, pretty much. And so then it was very funny because they lost another huge chunk of money, and the experience gains weren't massive, and Karak's like about 75 experience behind the other two. So I think it's a nice idea to let them have this way of boosting themselves up by spending a bit of coin as well. It keeps that money down and keeps the experience going, but not at a ridiculous rate. I think it's nicely balanced so far the way it's being done. And this is the most money they've had, pretty much, so, give them the temptation to spend it, and they've done just that. Well, anyway, they wake up the next morning with banging headaches, and they get a message from Lady Baranti saying, I want to see you. And then in no time at all, the coach turns up with blackened windows, and they go out to it. It's got the Baranti sigil on the door. Tanner decides he's going to ride up next to the driver because his head's hurting too much, and he's almost, he's just about holding on, keep complaining, shouting back about his head, and tries to be in on the conversation as Karak and Gabe get in the coach, and Lady Baranti is sitting in there, and the coach sets off. So they have this conversation, and she just wanted to get it down for a certainty that Karak was still with House Baranti, that she was still with the picture. And, he confirmed that and said, yeah, all right, I don't see any reason not to. And she starts speaking to Gabe and saying, someone of your skill, I could see me needing someone like you. And Gabe was saying, no, I don't see any reason why I need to work for you. And, Karak was even trying to convince him, saying, you could do worse as an employer. This is interesting, seeing as his previous semi-discretion there at that ball, his behaviour there. Is there going to be a follow-up to that? Or does it suffice that he is still in her service and she's got them both, as she perceives, in her grip? So then, it's just crazy that they're still working for her. You never know how these things are going to turn out, do you? I never expected that it would continue this way, actually. I thought they were going to end up taking her down, and I was worried about it. I thought, we're going to have to find a new reason to keep the team together. But no, they've chose this way, so I really didn't have to think of one. So sometimes things happen on the fly, and it's for the better, letting the players tell their own story. That's the order of business, isn't it? Anyway, Gabe agreed to work for her in the end, because he mentioned that someone was trying to kill him and they were sending people after him. And she said, oh yes, you share the same problem as Karak and Tanador, and in fact Amelia as well, who you know. And, oh God. She said, oh yes, I might be able to look into that and put an end to this contract on your life and possibly bring to light who it is that wants you dead so much so that you can have a chance of dealing with them personally. He liked the sound of that. That's progress. That's someone influential. So she said she'll look into that. So Gabe's on board. Lady Baranti always wins. That's the rule. She does it again. And they get ready to have to depart. Off, then. They want to start heading for Navarra, because the Grand Tourney is coming about soon, and Lady Baranti hinted at a few interesting things going on, and one of the possible reasons why Orzammar might have actually sent a delegation of its dwarves to take part in the thing, because of the grand prize being a paragon's smithing hammer called Anvil Breaker OMG. Yes, not technically a weapon type hammer, but more a smithing hammer. If you happen to be a smith, or a smith uses it, then it can grant armour a little bit of nice extra goodness. Orzammar will do anything to reclaim this, Lady Branty was saying. She was saying, oh yes, the information hasn't really come out yet about what the prize is going to be. Yet I know about it, and she was just showing her power and influence by explaining to the party, what it was going to be long in advance before they'd ever need to know or have a chance to know. But they wanted to head on over anyway, and Carax heard that there's going to be a Mages tournament as well, the Mages Meadow. It's going to be something that he has to do there. And there'll be prizes to be won, and all sorts of things. Because what do points mean? Points mean prizes. And then came all the Bruce Forsyth jokes. Where you got about warrior stances, battle stance, defensive stance, berserker stance, and Brucey stance. Yeah. God. Right, so, anyway, tap dancing on a corpse. They went to the docks, and they were about to try and get a ship off to the Free Marches. But they didn't have to pay, as it turns out, because they came across a conversation of two captains, and they were having a very rude talk about the first mate, and whether he did or did not actually molest some sea creature on the poop deck previous night. And they were making all the silly jokes about the fact that it's called a poop deck because that's where they can go, is it? And the captain was saying, no, you've got to try and aim over the edge, and just silly conversations like that. They were having a bit of fun, but the captain actually said, wait a minute, don't I know you? I know you, don't I? And they said, no, I don't think so. He said, no, I met you two before. And they managed to negotiate with each other, work it out, that it actually goes back to roughly the time frame of back when Tanador and Karak were travelling together in the whole Preludes era, before they met with Amelia and became the party in this arc. So, some point after they'd met, but during their travels, and around about the time that poor Karak's Stein got lost by Tanador. He doesn't let him forget that. And they said, yeah, you were covered in blood and you turned up drunk. And you got on one of my ships. And they seem to remember doing that as well. And on another occasion, going on a ship and going somewhere, when the Stein was actually lost. And they said, yes, you came on board. So I tell you what, I don't remember where we went, to be honest. I can't even remember what the destination was now, all this time ago. But, well, I'm creating some food off, some specialities over for the tourney. So, I mean, if you're going there, I'll give you free passage. How about that? And all you've got to do is help me guard the cargo, just in case pirates attack or whatever. Then hopefully they won't attack, and then you can just pretty much sit on deck chairs and enjoy the trip. So they said, all right, well, we'll do that. But Karak was insistent. He was saying, oh, but one more thing. You wouldn't happen to have a bone pipe, would you? I'm after a bone pipe, said he. And Tanador's trying to tell him, oh, you don't need a bone pipe, just get a normal one. He said, no, I want a bone pipe, it makes it taste better. And he thought about it, and he said, oh, well, I might know of a very nice bone pipe, but it depends how much you want it now, doesn't it? For trade. And Karak said, oh, I really, really want it. Anyway, at this point, Gabe's letting me know, oh, by the way, I'm trying to pick his pockets when he doesn't notice. So I'm getting him to do the legitimate roll thing, and then that's successful versus the perception of trying to notice it. So, he's successfully done that, but I don't really reveal the results of that. I just let him have done the role, and I don't let him know too much else. I just say, oh, okay. Right, and then I get on with the conversation still with Karak, and he says, well, seeing as you put it like that, if you've got coin to spend, as I clearly see you do, then I happen to have the most exquisite bone pipe you will ever have seen. And he reaches into his a jacket, goes to pull it out, and he's, that's funny, he says. I could swear I had it in here. Maybe it must be back in my cabin. When I come back and find it, I'll find you on board, and I'll show you it. And then we'll see what it's worth to you. And at this point, the players were laughing and smiling because they got it. They got what was happening because, Gabe had gone for a pickpocket attempt, and so I've neatly selected that it's the pipe that Gabe has now taken. So the pipe that Karak so desperately wants, Gabe secretly has in possession. And whether he's going to let Karak know that he's now got it or not, I don't know. But they'd all worked it out, the players, and they thought it was very, very clever the way their crossover like that. I suppose GMing sometimes is about looking for opportunities to do something memorable, plausible, and just let it be. Let the world speak in its voice, but in your voice as well, and trying to stay true to both simultaneously without betraying the other. Wholly your system without going to non-canonical from the world's elements, if you're trying not to as the campaign setting from the off of what you're planning to do. Obviously, if you're trying to go out of canon as the principle at the very beginning, then it doesn't matter, does it? But staying true to the theme and the feeling of the world, but still being true to yourself, but then going the other way as well, and not betraying too much of yourself, to principles of the way you kind of like to play, because you've got to make sure that you still enjoy playing the game, and you've got to, if the setting doesn't completely work, but you have to be playing it, then try and adapt as much as possible to your style. If for instance, say D&D, I was trying to use that, and if it was too high fantasy for my liking, I would try and have the campaign brought right down and not use a lot of the races, but that would actually bother me a little bit doing that, because I kind of like to run a world as it's mass known, really. I like to know that I'm running the world that other people have been in. It's all the same world, it's not just my shard of the world. It gives me like this warm feeling, this unanimous feeling that we're all cosy in the same boat together. Maybe that's just me being daft, but hey, there it is. Well, anyway, they've departed on their ship, and we'll see what Gabe's going to do with that pipe. And they're off there on their way to the tournament. I hope nothing goes wrong while they are heading there. We'll have to see next session. But until that time, I will see you at the table.